All right, we have on stage with us Jim O'Brien. He is the Vice President, Server Engineering, Operations, and IT at Counterpath. He teaches IP telephony and unified communications at Northeastern University. He has over 20 years' experience in VoIP, including at Level 3, Genuity, GTE, and IBM. He's going to be talking about lessons learned in the shift from software as a product to software as a service. The title of his talk is 10 Essential Network Operations, Tools, Systems, and Things in 30 Minutes. Let's give a big round of applause to Jim O'Brien.
Hi, I'm Jim from Counterpath, and I'm going to talk about a bunch of tools we use at Counterpath to improve our monitoring. That's where I'll eventually get. First thing, though, is that I'm really here this week to make connections with people and meet up with people that I've known for quite a while, but also meet new people. I'm not the most outgoing person, though, so if you want to talk about, upstate New York tech schools that you might have gone to, I went to one of those. If you want to talk about Red Sox and how great they're doing this month, that's a joke. I'd like to talk about that. If you've got kids, you want to talk about that, or if you work for telco companies, things like that, I'd love to talk about any of those things. That would be fun. When I was trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about, I thought I might talk about some of the services that Counterpath has been doing. Counterpath is traditionally a product company, right? Everyone knows what X-Lite is. You probably know what Bria is. You probably think about Counterpath as a client company. And that's definitely in our DNA. But we're making a change. And it's the same change that I think a lot of software companies are making, a lot of product companies are making, because people are looking for services. And the AS or AST or whatever you want to call it, kind of subscriptions. And so, I thought about talking about different services we were doing, or different components we have, or some of the challenges there. But what I ended up wanting to really talk about was the shift in moving from a company that creates software, puts it in a box, creates software, puts it on a download server, has customers download it and use it, of course provides support, but that you're not in the day-to-day flow of your customer's business. They're not depending on you to be up, right? They're not depending on you to provide them service. I think the area I wanted to focus in on was really the kind of heartbeat nature of watching your network and watching your services. Some tools that are none of them are revolutionary. They're probably evolutionary, that we've used to improve what we're doing, kind of in our operations team, in our DevOps team, in our network infrastructure team. And I think monitoring can kind of be a superpower. I looked up the definition of superpower because I thought I should do that before this, and I got this really weird reference to the U.S. and the former Soviet Union. So that's definitely not what I'm talking about. I'm also not talking about sort of the Avengers or Marvel Comics or things like that. That kind of superpower. But really, the superpower I want to talk about is that my monitoring is better than your monitoring, and then I win. Right? So when we go to vendors, and we use lots of vendors for different components of our solution, we try to make sure that we know exactly what's going on in their network. And often, we know more than they do about their network before they do. And certainly when we have customers come to us and they're looking to use our services, we want to make sure that we know before they do, right? Because if we know before they do, we can get ahead of it, and we can try to resolve the issue, hopefully before a lot of our users see it, right? You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to solve every issue before every user encounters it. So we want to make sure that our monitoring is better than your monitoring, and therefore we win. So this is a really simple one. I thought I'd try to start with something really simple. But when we have any of our ops people get onto a machine, and we're not completely in the Kubernetes camp yet, right? We still run a lot of VMs. We still run a lot of bare metal servers. I like bare metal. I like VMs. I'm starting to like Kubernetes too, but we're not quite there yet. But when we log into machines, we want people to know what's going on, right? And so one of the amazing things that you can do on a Debian machine or CentOS or Red Hat or wherever you want to use is you can splash up a splash page. It doesn't have to be just ASCII art, right? You can actually put information there about what's going on in that machine. And what we try to do is have that login script type the first 5 things that you want to know about that machine when you log in, right? What's the state of the services? How's this machine looking? How's its health look? Things like that. So there's nothing specific about what goes into these other than being really small white text on a big black background. But it is helpful to get that information right in front of the operations staff as they're about to go make a change, right? That if they're going to go do some maintenance and they log into a machine, they think it's the standby machine. If you can flash up that, nope, this is the active database node, or this is the active whatever node, it's really very helpful, right? So the second one is this little tool called SNGrep. Does everyone? I should ask. Maybe I should start by taking a poll, do a little user interaction. Does everyone know what SNGrep is? Have you used this? Wow. Okay. Not enough of you raised your hands. Go type app install SNGrep or yum install SNGrep. So this is a little command line tool that shows you SIP things in the command line without firing up Wireshark, without pulling logs off the machine in real time. It's amazing. It's great if you've got a machine with like a port mirror and you're port mirroring like the world into it. You can do searching and filtering. Really great little tool. I have to give credit to Mark Crane, who showed this on ClueCon Weekly. I don't even know how long ago. He was doing a Fusion PBX demo, and he showed this, and I was like, oh my God, that's the tool I've been waiting for, because I live in the command line, right? Yeah, go install that. It'll blow your mind. Okay. So the next tool, I picked one in particular called nload, but there's a whole bunch of network command line tools that are available. And nload is great because you can actually see the live network traffic on your machine. So when you're running video and you've got problems with like runaway NACs, right, where one of your machines is sending NAC, and so one of your clients is sending NAC, and the server starts sending packets over and over again, and you're hitting a network bandwidth kind of problem, particularly on the client side, you can just keep sending and sending and sending and building up bandwidth. And so something like nload is critical in trying to find those problems and really get good visibility into what's going on particular nodes in your network. So check out nload. Next one is third-party monitoring. So we use a particular set of tools, and there's a lot of people in this space. But one of the things we believe in is that we can't run all of our own monitoring infrastructure, because if we do, we're likely to screw it up. So we run other people's monitoring that watches our monitoring, right? Might sound a little overzealous. We also run other people's monitoring that watches all of our infrastructure. And it's usually what we hook up to pagers and SMS, right? The third-party stuff goes to pagers and SMS, and that wakes people up. Our stuff is more detailed, right? Looks at processes and ports and individual nodes, not all the clusters. So we like Pingdom. I don't know if you guys know Pingdom. If you haven't, I think they got bought by SolarWinds. Pretty great product, pretty great service. We've been a long-time customer there. We use Panopta. Very similar to Pingdom. They've got an agent model. We use Datadog, kind of single pane of glass, everything from like your Postgres statistics to JMX if you're using anything Java. They've got stats there, but process and port monitoring and agent-based. So if you're not using third-party monitoring, we find that's a really important part of kind of the ecosystem of monitoring stuff that we deploy for our services. Really impressive. So the next one, we've taken this a bit more in-house. You can do this with third-party services as well. But one of the things we look at is application-aware dashboards. So we don't typically build dashboards for our marketing folks or dashboards for our product folks, but they really like these when we build them. This is one we built around our hosted collab product. So you get bouncy little lines, but these are all custom metrics that we're pulling off of pieces of our software and publishing back to this monitor. This happens to be Zabbix. Publishing back to Zabbix and then plotting over time. So we get these really nice curves of things that are very custom to what's going on in our application. A lot of times it's really good for trending, but you can also use it for alarming, if you think you're going to hit a capacity or something like that. This is that same tool, Zabbix, but this is database connections to a particular database node. And we saw this pattern one day, right after we set this up, because we just started watching all of our connections. And going from about 100 connections to about 150 connections on your active database node is not a good thing, right? And doing it every 10 minutes or so is not a good thing. And what we figured out is we just had an audit process that was running, and the developer said, no, I can't use more than 3 database connections. And then we pointed him at the graph, right? And he checked it out. And he's like, huh, that's kind of weird, right? So, a lot of this, monitoring and what I'm getting at maybe is around visibility. And so if you can put up things like this, even though we were never expecting to see these like mountain peaks in our database connections. But when you do see that, it leads you down the path of what's going on in the infrastructure. How can I really find out what's going on? Or, why are there 50 database connections created and then destroyed a couple minutes later, every 10 minutes? More stuff. Okay, so the other thing that we've really put a focus on is active monitoring and probing of our infrastructure. So when we can, we try to simulate everything that users do. So one of the most recent things we've done is we built something called Cert Monitor. It's a little script that goes and checks every one of our platforms on every port that does SSL. It makes a real connection and checks the expiration date, checks the chain, checks a few other things about that cert as deployed to that machine. So that if someone screwed something up along the way and server number 12 just had a problem, we check it. But we check it every day. And you can run this more often than that, and you can do fancier things to alarm on it. But a portion of our ops team gets a little email that if there's something out of whack, at the top of this it says, this server's having a problem, or this server's going to expire soon. Essentially, you forgot to deploy the cert, right? Or if there's a chain problem, other stuff happens, right? We alarm on that. But being able to probe the network like that, even on something so simple as SSL, is pretty important. I guess it's not just knowing when your certs are going to expire. It's knowing how your certs are deployed to every machine. This is a service we've used for like 10 years. There's a little company called Website Pulse. And mostly they're for monitoring your web pages, monitoring your web apps. But they've got this little SIP plugin where you can put in your domain and your SIP credentials, and they'll register to you up to once every minute. Right? It's a neat little thing. We've since sort of improved upon what we got from Website Pulse with something else we built that I'll talk about in 2 slides. But if you're looking for something that's going to give you a heartbeat of your SIP registrar, of your SIP service, of your outbound proxy, of your SBC, of your PBX, it's a really neat little tool, and it's like stupid cheap to run. And again, it's another third-party thing that can check your own checks. So another really important thing for us, again, especially as you get into containers or virtualization or infrastructure that you're bringing up and down based upon your offered load, is centralized logging, or you maybe not so centralized, but at least log visibility. If you can't get right now to centralized logging, at least go for something that's log visibility, or that'll improve your log visibility. One of the really important things we figured out is that if every support rep at Counterpath has access to our logs, they'll figure it out. Because after working with someone in the tier 3 group, they'll see what the logs are that indicate a problem. So they will go into the logs and check it and figure out that if they have the access, if they have the ability to understand it, they'll go do that. And for what that does for us is it reduces our resolution times, because the person answering our customers' questions can say, "Yep, I see the problem. I'm going to tell the engineering team, I see that problem again. This is the problem. We know what this is, and we can get a much better resolution for our customers." Really neat. So there's a ton of platforms to do this with. We're using Logstash. It's great, but Graylog is supposed to be really good as well, and there's a ton in this space. You can also outsource this, right? Loggly or a bunch of other services. I've talked about this at ClueCon before, but one of the things that our clients do, and then our Stretto platform does, we call this user experience metrics. But for every call that every one of our clients make, we report not only voice quality monitoring, but also analytics about that call. So if you have a population of users, they might be spread out over a number of sites, they might be using different devices, they might be using different access technologies. But you get this kind of set, this data set of information about everyone who's made a call on your network over whatever look back period you're looking to track it. And when you have that data set, you can kind of see what's going on with users. but you can also drill in to particular users and figure out why they are different than people next to them, right? Or the example I like to say is, why are Jim's calls really poor quality on Fridays, right? Well, it might be because I'm not at the office, but I'm working from home. Or it might be that I'm not working from home, I'm really working from the beach, right? Or whatever that might be. So as you build up this really big data set of, again, every call that every user makes on every device they have on your network, you get this really great information set to drill into. So I won't talk too much about that. Okay, and then the last tool, so this is, again, something we've been doing for a little while, something we use on our infrastructure, something we use on the SIP service providers. They love us for it. So we have a tool that spins up 2 instances of our SDK. We sell an SDK product, we use it ourselves. But this spins up 2 instances of the SDK. We SIP register into the provider. We make a call. We verify the signaling, we verify the media, and then the SDK shuts down. And we do that every minute on every provider, all the time. And what we get is a heartbeat, right? So going back to that other heartbeat slide I have, we have a heartbeat of our provider, and often we know when they're down before they know they're down, and it's really, really powerful. We took that same tool and we did it for XMPP. So again, 2 clients spin up, they create connections to the XMPP server. This time it's usually ours, right, because we have an XMPP product. The 2 users trade XMPP messages, right? They send a message between each other. They both change presence, and they're watching for the other presence to change. They check the V card so that all the contact information that they're receiving is correct, and then they spin down. And then they do it again, and then they go down, and then they do it again, right? And the last one we've done is we've added this same tool for our collaboration service. So here, there's a bunch of web, REST-based XML, JSON kind of interaction that we do with the collaboration platform. And then we make a SIP over TLS call and an SRTP call into a bridge, and we fire up audio and we fire up video, and we verify all the media paths. We make sure the conference connected. We make sure that all the information the client received about the conference, about the participants and the users, and the voice energy for the other users worked, and then we spin it all down, right? And we do that again and again and again. It's really, really powerful. You can't probably do this with our SDK, but you can probably do it with something like SIP-P or tools like that, right? So whenever you can probe the network like that, it's really amazing. And I've got some extra time, but I think that's all I had. Thanks for listening. Hopefully that was interesting.